been a minute or, or a lot longer. Oh my gosh. Well, as of this moment, it is 12/29/24. I hope everyone is having a good holiday. And I am reaching out to you this Sunday evening, not because it's my normal Sunday episode, but because I had a full blown experience, something that I haven't had in a while. I've had some things happen that they weren't, well, let's just put it this way. Any experiences I've had up to this moment haven't had much clarity, and not enough clarity to share with you guys and to be solid on the fact that it's an experience. And for me, I have to be solid on that. I have to really be like, okay, I actually experienced something. So tonight, let me get right into it. It was interesting. It was probably a little scary, I think, in this, whatever this reality was, whatever this place was. It was very interesting. So I was laying down to take a nap, and this was a couple of hours ago, actually. Right now in Southern California, where I am, it's 9:45. So this was probably around 8:40. No, maybe 7:30, 7:40, somewhere in that vicinity. So I was lying down. I even set my alarm. For those of you who are interested, I had storm sounds on because I know that people are interested in what I have in the background. And so I was lying down, I was relaxing, and at some point I got up, I went to the restroom. I think I may have fallen asleep for a little bit. Got up, went to the restroom, came back, laid down. I just wanted to close my eyes and rest my eyes for a while. I thought to myself, I'm going to get up eventually. But in my mind, at some point, I remember imagining, well, remember, I've told you guys about this technique that I kind of created, I guess, where um, it is a thing of me pushing through space, not outer space, but the space around me, and imagining that pushing through that space would push me through to another reality. So I was just imagining that because I think I was thinking that, I could actually, have an experience. So I did this, and then I felt myself at some point go to the left of my bed. And for those of you who don't normally listen to my experiences, my shifting experiences, because that is what this was, definitely for sure, it was a shifting experience. When I move to another reality, it's not instant. I've heard people say that they experience it as something instant, but for me, it isn't an instant thing. Normally, I will either feel myself move to the left or move to the right on my bed. I'll feel myself begin to fall to the floor. Sometimes there are different variations. Sometimes I will, float off my bed or whatever. There's different ways of doing it, but the consistent thing is that I feel my entire body moving. So I felt my entire body going over the bed. And as always, this was one thing that when I was having more regular experiences, that I would always say that I was afraid I'm going to hit the ground. Um, but I never did, and in this case, I did not. I did not hit the ground. I went as soon as I went over my bed. I went down, but then I slowed down before I came to the floor, and then I began to move, I believe. But there was a moment there when I went to the floor where where there was a pause. I didn't move at first, but I sat there or I laid there because I didn't want to get up. I think sometimes in the middle of transitioning or traveling, if I just try to get up immediately, I may end up in God knows what kind of reality if I do that. I wanted to allow the movement to finish and to make sure that the movement was finished before I stood up. And that is excuse me, that is the sense that I get, is that when I'm lying down, if I when I get to another reality, that I stand up or whatever. But so I there was a little bit of movement, and then I stopped, and then the darkness cleared, it lifted, and I stood up. I believe I may have been in bed in this reality, but I'm not 100% certain. Um, what I do remember for sure when I got up was that this was a version of my apartment, right? And in my apartment, near my bed is the patio area. And one of the first things I did was I opened my patio door because I could see outside, and there was a fence. Now this was weird, guys, but the fence, and there is, by the way, there is no fence where I live in my current reality that I live. There is no fence, but there was definitely a fence outside. But what was weird was that it looked like a fence that was partially finished. It wasn't completed. The top of the fence didn't seem to be completed, and it seemed like they needed to do more work to complete it. But at the same time, I had this sense that it was finished. It was a weird looking fence. And on the other side of that fence, there were kids playing. And I remember there was a dog, scared the heck out of me. I heard this dog barking. And let's just say that this didn't seem to be a hospitable place. I don't remember everything that I was seeing, but there was something weird about this place. And there was a sense that I was getting. And I always trust my gut in these situations. There was a weird feeling. So I think I may have been on my guard. So I went back into my apartment and I started touching things. I remember distinctly picking up a pair of keys. That's the one thing I do remember. And I was feeling it. I was touching surfaces. I was picking up other things. And I kept thinking to myself, and I was saying out loud, this is real. And I think I was saying this in the way that I was saying it because it had been so long since I had an experience that it was weird having an experience and realizing that I was in a weird place, but I didn't know exactly where I was at this point. I decided to go outside. So I opened my front door and I stepped out into the hall. Things were a little dark. Sometimes that is the case when I go to these places. When I go into hallways and things, it seems to be a bit darker. I don't know why. I'm not sure. Maybe it was my vision. Maybe I was still adjusting to this particular reality. But as I was walking, I passed these people and they were speaking Spanish. Now, for those of you who have been with the channel for a while, you know that I am capable of speaking Spanish. I'm not quite fluent, but I'm probably pretty close to it, where I can understand most of what's being said. I watch entire videos in Spanish. So I can basically speak the language. I did believe when I passed by that that was what I was hearing in a way. This is really weird. This is probably the strangest part. There was a taller man and he had lighter hair and he had light skin. I remember him most. He may have been with his family, but I'm not 100% sure about this. So he's speaking Spanish and he was saying something. I couldn't quite understand it. Even though I had this sense that he was speaking Spanish, I couldn't quite understand exactly what he was saying. And then I said something like, Hola, ¿cómo está? Or ¿Cómo están? I'm not sure exactly what I said, which is basically, how are you? And if you're talking to a group, ¿Cómo están is, I think, the proper way to say it because you're referring to the group. Those of you in my audience who are Spanish speakers, you'll definitely correct me on this. Again, I am an English speaker who taught myself to speak Spanish, so I could get some things incorrect. But so, I asked, I said, I didn't ask, it wasn't a question. I just said, "Cómo están," whatever. And the person turned to me and he said something to me in response in Spanish, but it was very hard for me to understand. And I mean hard to the point of not hard to the point that he was speaking too fast, because if someone speaks Spanish too fast, sometimes I don't understand all the words, but I can understand, some of them, and I can kind of put together what they're saying. It was to the point where I was like, "What?" It was like it was almost like a different version of Spanish to me. I couldn't quite understand it. There may have been one or two words that I could have picked out. Now I know that there are similar languages to Spanish. Italian and Portuguese come to mind very quickly, and so you hear those languages, and there are certain words that are similar that they share, right? But honestly, it didn't sound like Portuguese or Italian to me, because I know I'm familiar. I've heard both languages. And it didn't sound like any other Latin language that I'd ever heard. It was weird. It did sound a bit like Spanish, but sorry, guys. It was so weird to me to hear the language spoken in the way this person spoke it. I do remember that, and this was something that I've been trying to figure out since I opened my eyes back in this reality. He said something about having to have a permit. Now, I took it as you have to have a permit to speak Spanish, because I believe he spoke a little bit of English, but he was speaking to me in Spanish, but then he also, I think, said in Spanish, you have to have a permit. And now it was either that you have to have a permit to speak the language, or you have to have a permit, I think. And as I was thinking about it when I came back, I was thinking to myself, you have to have a permit to travel there or to shift to that place. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure, but that was what he expressed to me. Now, after I passed him, I passed a man that had on a suit, and this guy, I could see the guy's badge. Now, this was another thing that I was trying to figure out, because the guy kind of grabbed me, and I was like, "What is going on?" So the guy took me, and he was telling me in English, "You need to have a permit." And I was like, "What?" What do you mean you need to have a permit? Again, I was going back to the idea or the fact that you would need either need a permit to speak the language, or you would need a permit to travel here. I wasn't quite sure, but in the moment that he kind of grabbed me, I thought to myself, "Okay, I gotta get out of here, because I don't know what's going on." I do. Right before I came back, I looked at his badge, and it made me think, for some reason, that I was in a version of Wisconsin. Now, I'm not exactly sure why. His badge looked like it said something like Wisconsin, but he said, or I perceived that he may have said, Wocohete. Wocohete was the name. That's what I perceived, but on the badge it looked like Wisconsin. I know, guys, this might sound very confusing to you, and for those of you who have been with me for a while, you know I've had weird experiences, and sometimes I'm kind of in the middle of it trying to figure out exactly what it is that I saw, because I go to random places. For those of you who are just joining me, maybe you haven't listened to other videos, I go to random realities. I don't go to a particular one, and I don't go to DRs and things like that. I go to places that I don't know exactly what's going to happen sometimes. But I knew I had to get out of there. Also, I wanted to real quickly describe the badge. It looked oval to me. It was silver, and I remember seeing the name on the badge. Anyways, this was another thing I wanted to tell you guys, and I know I seen that badge shape and style before somewhere. I think I couldn't quite place where I've seen it, but I've seen it somewhere. Anyway, I returned shortly after this, guys, and opened my eyes and got up, and I was like, okay, I got to share this with my community. And oh, I don't know, you guys will probably have some thoughts. A few of you will tell me what you think of this experience. Hey, I'm here to read and to take in whatever it is that you guys think. Thank you so much for coming on this strange journey with me. And until next time, take care.